We tend to think of peace and justice as being on the same team, right? Two noble goals that are supposed to go hand in hand. But what happens when they don't? What if the passionate quest for one actually destroys any chance of having the other? That's the absolutely brutal dilemma we're digging into in this explainer.
So to really get this, you've got to understand that there's been a huge shift in how the world operates over the last few decades. A really powerful consensus has formed. The idea of human rights, it's not just some footnote anymore. It's become totally central to how we think about conflict.
And look, this isn't just some high-minded theory. We've seen it play out in the real world, from peace deals in Central America to Cambodia and way beyond. Human rights aren't an afterthought. They're pivotal. They are literally woven into the fabric of peace agreements, setting the stage for a better future. But this new focus creates a very modern, very tough problem.
And boom, there it is. The one question that hangs over every single modern conflict. What if demanding perfect justice, demanding accountability right now, actually makes a peace deal impossible? What if it condemns thousands more people to die in a war that maybe could have been stopped?
All right, so let's make this real. We're going to dive into the war in the former Yugoslavia, because here, the choice between an imperfect but achievable peace and a long, drawn-out war for a more just outcome, well, that wasn't a debate in a classroom. It was a daily reality, and it was measured in human lives.
This quote from former U.S. Secretary of State James Baker, man, it just cuts right through all the noise. He lays out the stark reality they were facing. There was zero international appetite for sending in ground troops. So the options? They were brutally simple. 1, negotiate a peace, or 2, let the parties fight it out. You either get them to the table or you stand back and watch the slaughter.
So what did they do? They tried to negotiate. And this timeline, it just shows what an agonizing, frustrating process that was. Plan after plan was put on the table, debated, and then rejected. For years, a real, workable peace was just out of reach, all while the war just kept on raging.
Then, in early 1993, there was this glimmer of hope. It was called the Vance-Owen Plan. It was a super detailed constitutional blueprint for Bosnia. And here's the crucial part. The people on the ground, the Bosnian Croats and even the Bosnian Serbs, they swallowed hard and they actually accepted it. This was it. A real, tangible path to peace was on the table.
But almost immediately, the backlash from international pundits and commentators was fierce. They called it a betrayal. They called it the Munich of our times. They argued that the plan was basically rewarding aggression, that it was legitimizing ethnic cleansing. I mean, honorable, dedicated negotiators like Cyrus Vance and Lord Owen were just getting blasted in public.
And all that pressure, all that moral outrage, it worked. The plan fell apart. It just died. And the result on the ground wasn't a better, more just peace. It was just more war. The fighting got even worse, and the dying just didn't stop.
Let's just put a number on this, okay? 17 months. That's how long it took after the next major plan was proposed for everyone to finally get to the Dayton talks. A year and a half. Just try to imagine the death, the destruction, the unbelievable suffering that filled that gap.
This quote right here, it captures the ugly, messy truth that negotiators eventually had to accept. Richard Holbrooke, the guy who finally brokered the Dayton Accords, he said it plainly. To stop a war, you have to talk to the very people who are waging it. It's not pretty, but it's reality. After all, you make peace with your enemies, not with your friends.
So you have to ask, and this is a really haunting question from our source material, those critics, the ones who helped kill the earlier, imperfect peace deals, did they win? Did they achieve a more just outcome? Or were their victories simply counted in the ever-expanding graveyards of Bosnia?
Okay, so what this all really boils down to is a massive confusion about roles. The tragedy in Yugoslavia highlights this fundamental question. Who is supposed to do what in a war zone? Are peacemakers there to stop the fighting, or are they there to build a court case?
And this right here lays it out crystal clear. A peace negotiator has one main job: end the war. Their method is to somehow craft an agreement that the warring parties will actually accept. But a human rights fact finder, they have a totally different purpose: uncover the facts, assign responsibility, and call for justice. Both jobs are vital, but you can see how their goals can be in direct opposition.
And let's just drill down on this for a second. If you look at the specific functions of a human rights expert, like a special rapporteur, notice what's not on this list. It doesn't say negotiate a peace deal. Their role is to investigate, to report, to be the voice of conscience. Their job is to create a record of the truth.
So this leads us to the core argument here. These two incredibly important roles have to be kept separate. The fact-finder's work is absolutely vital, and it's definitely relevant to the peace process, but it can't be allowed to completely derail the incredibly fragile negotiations that are just trying to stop the killing.
So where does that leave us? What's the ultimate takeaway from this collision between the pursuit of justice and the pursuit of peace? What's the real price we pay for demanding a perfect outcome in a horribly imperfect world? Well, you see, this is the mission impossible that negotiators are often handed. On one hand, they're told, uphold these lofty principles, never reward aggression. But on the other hand, they're told, get those same aggressors to sign a piece of paper and stop the war. It's a fundamental, maybe even impossible contradiction. And this next quote, honestly, it might be the most powerful and sobering one we look at today. Just listen to this. The quest for justice for yesterday's victims of atrocities should not be pursued in such a manner that it makes today's living the dead of tomorrow. In other words, chasing accountability is essential, but you can't do it in a way that turns people who are alive right now into the next wave of victims.
And that brings us to the really grim lesson from the former Yugoslavia. A perfect peace is almost never an option in the real world, especially after a bloody war. And the passionate quest for that unattainable ideal, it came with a catastrophic cost. Thousands upon thousands of people are dead who should have been alive today, all because moralists were searching for the perfect peace.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly difficult question to really think about. When we're faced with horrific atrocities, how do we know where that line is? When does holding firm to a moral principle cross over and become a form of tragic perfectionism, one that just leads to even more death? There really is no easy answer.